Valentine's present. It's Valentine's Day, my friends, and I got my fiancée something special this year. Something that should show her exactly how much I care for her, how much I truly love her. No, I didn't get her the old standard roses and a dusty old box of Russell Stover's chocolates that's probably been on the shelf since Valentine's Day circa 1986. You see, my gift involved more thought, more preparation, literal and actual blood, sweat, and tears. I have set up a beautiful Valentine's Day feast with a few of the people that are constants in our lives and our relationship. The first guests are her boss Robert and co-worker Stephen. I get to hear about these two winners every workday when she walks through the front door. Her boss Robert is a piece of shit with legs, who time after time passes my fiancé over for her much-deserved promotion and gives it to her male co-workers, even if they haven't been there as long as her. And on top of that, sprinkle in a little workplace harassment. Yeah, this guy sounds like a real treat to work for. Then there's Stephen, who's only been my fiancé's co-worker for 2 days and just got promoted over her just because he's her boss's brother-in-law. Plus, on top of that, in the 2 short days they've worked together, she said were the worst 2 days she'd had working for that company. He belittled her. He didn't listen to her instructions and was condescending every chance he got. Let me tell you, friends, these two were a real pleasure to dispose of, if you get my meaning. Next up is her best friend Jessica. They have been best friends since they were in short pants, but sadly, I guess Jessica made the age-old mistake of getting drunk at the barbecue we threw last weekend, and she got a little flirty with me. I didn't notice anything, but my fiancé did, and after our guests left, that's all she complained about. She was very, very upset. So I'm sorry, Jessica. Even though I didn't notice your transgressions, you had to go. And finally, on our list of extinguished guests, was a late ad, by the way. She was added to the list before I went to bed last night, and it's none other than my would-have-been future mother-in-law. I wasn't planning on her originally when I put this special list together, but last night before bed, my fiancé complained about her mother talking crap about our relationship and saying hurtful things about her appearance. Well, I'm sorry. I've never had a real problem with her mother, but if you badmouth my baby, I'm sorry, but you have to go. And this morning, she went, if you catch my drift. I just handled that situation 2 hours ago. Since then, I've been back home cooking her favorite meal, getting the table and house prepared. The candles are lit, the food is ready, and the table is set. It's just me sitting here waiting for the love of my life, surrounded by the corpses that have given my love such pain. I cannot wait to see the look on her face when she sees what I've done for her. No more pain, no more disrespect will she suffer from these pieces of shit anymore. I hear her car pull up the driveway. I'm getting nervous now. I hear her car door close. Her heels click up the walkway to our front door. Her key enters the lock. The twist of the doorknob. Surprise! I shout. Happy Valentine's Day, my love. I glance at her face. Let's just say that was not the look I was hoping for. Don't you like your Valentine's present, my love? It's everyone you've been complaining about, giving you problems in your life, baby. How do you like it, baby? I asked nervously, but also with a slight hint of optimism. Is that my boss, Robert, and co-worker, Stephen? She asked with a slight tremble in her voice. Why, yes, it is, baby. Those fuckers won't be bothering you anymore. I slice her effing throats, as you can see. It was a pure delight, believe me, I said with a joyful exuberance. Oh my God, is that Jessica? You killed my best friend? She asked with a slight raise of her octaves. Yes, it is, my love, and I'm starting to not like this tone of yours. I disposed of Jessica and filleted her from stem to sternum because you called her a backstabbing slut after the barbecue. I didn't even want to do it. Then she looked at the head of the table. Whose body is that? She asked me very shakily. Look down at the table, my dear. Her head's right there staring at you, I said to her with a wide grin. Oh my God, no. It's my mother. How could you? Listen here now. You're making me very upset, baby. Just last night you were complaining about your mother, so this morning I paid her a visit, knocking on her door, and cut her effing head off. I don't like these complaints, my love, or this tone you're giving me, and I definitely don't appreciate how you're looking at me right now. All you've been doing is complaining about these people and the pain they've caused you, and you said everything would be easier if they would all just disappear from your life. Well, I did it. I did everything you asked for. Yes, but I never told you to kill them. I never mentioned for them to die. Listen, it's going to be okay. I still love you, and we're going to get you some help, baby, I promise. I was crushed. Her response broke my heart. This was definitely not the response I was hoping for. I grabbed the large butcher knife on the table and hold it down by my side. I walk over to her standing in the corner of the dining room, trembling, and whisper in her ear. Well, my love, I'm sorry you feel this way. I really am. But there's one more seat at the table. I guess I'll just have to give myself a Valentine's Day gift. I don't like Valentine's Day. I have never really been a fan of Valentine's Day, not even when I was a teenager and expected big romantic gestures from the guys I was dating. So when I notice all the little balloons and roses and chocolates he's left in the room for me, it takes me a while to completely process everything. He wasn't extremely popular in high school, not one of those guys who had girls clinging to him all the time. So he always makes a big deal out of Valentine's Day. So even though I protested the first few years, over time I have learned to just take what he gives with a smile on my face. Because I don't want to upset him. I reach out to pull the card closest to me when I hear footsteps outside the door. On the inside of the card, he has scribbled a note. I just wanted to make up for all of the time we've spent apart. I keep pretending to read it as he opens the door. I see you found your presents, he says as he walks towards me. I give him a small smile. He walks up to me and starts unlocking the chains at my feet. I just want to make you feel special. I love you, you know, he says as he pulls at the hem of my skirt. I just nod my head and smile. Like I said, I don't want to upset him. Not on Valentine's Day. The ring. Martha and James went camping up in Mount Charleston. This wasn't the first time they've been camping up there. They usually go camping every other weekend, but this was a special occasion. It was their usual Valentine's Day camping trip. They drove up in the morning and got their camp set up by the afternoon. There was a light snowfall as they set up the tent. Then they went on a hike and gathered some wood to start a fire. They sat by the fire and talked, then cooked dinner. The snow started falling a little more heavily now, so they left the fire and decided to head into the tent. They got under the sleeping bag and began making out. Just then Martha thought she heard someone walking in the snow. "Stop it, James. I hear something." "Hear what?" James asked. "Crunching in the snow. Don't you hear that?" "It's probably just an animal. Calm down, Martha. You're always so jumpy." "No, James, I'm not doing anything more until you go see what that noise was." "Fine. I'll show you there's nothing to be scared of. Stay here. Stay undressed. I'll be right back." James put his clothes on, grabbed his hatchet, unzipped the tent and went out. It was freezing. "Zip the tent up, James. It's cold." "Yes, Martha, whatever you say, dear." Martha could hear James walking around the camp. She then thought she heard him say, "I don't see anything out here. I'll be right back. I'm going to the bathroom," but wasn't quite sure because of the muffling of the tent and the wind picking up outside. Martha waited for James what seemed like forever. She looked at her cell phone. It had to have been at least 20 minutes since he'd been gone. It was a small blizzard out there. No way he would be taking his sweet-ass time. Martha was getting very concerned at this point. Just as she was putting her clothes back on, she could hear footsteps in the snow approaching. "Oh, good, he's back." She laid back down and waited for him to open the tent. Nothing. "James, stop playing games. It's not funny anymore. Stop trying to scare me." 5 more minutes passed. She could hear rustling, but James still hadn't opened the tent. "Whatever, James. Keep playing your games. You're in the doghouse now, pal. No action tonight." Just then she heard a scratching on the top of the tent. "All right, James, that's enough. No more games." Martha unzipped the tent and rushed out. "All right, where are you? You son of a—" When she looked up, she saw James dangling from a tree branch. His throat had been cut open, and the scratching she heard on the roof of the tent was his wedding ring. Martha screamed and ran to the car. She drove to the nearest ranger station and they called the police. Now you might say this is based on the urban legend, but this case actually happened. The man who killed James, and would have done the same to poor Martha if she hadn't escaped, was a copycat killer. He killed multiple victims by recreating famous urban legends. The Pointing Girl. I have seen ghosts my whole life. When I was a little girl, my parents sent me to a shrink. But no matter what drug or counsel I was given, they never went away. Out of every ghost I have seen throughout my life, there is one I will never forget. The Pointing Girl. It was Valentine's Day 1998, and I was 16. By this point, I had learned to remain calm whenever I saw something, no matter how chilling. That's what I did when I saw her. I was waiting for the school bus while she stood across the street. She was a small girl with long blonde curls, wearing a cute polka dot dress. If it wasn't for the fact her neck was wide open and she wasn't creepily staring and pointing at me, I might have found her adorable. At school, the first half of the day went as usual. I walked to class by myself, I sat by myself, and then I ate lunch by myself. But something new happened before last period. I found a Valentine's Day card in my locker. At first, I thought it was a joke, but it was signed, "Your secret admirer, JB." I knew right away it was Jeremy Benson. He would always smile at me, and I would always blush. During last period, I shared a class with Jeremy, so I sat next to him. To my surprise, he talked to me. Soon we were laughing and gossiping. It was mostly about our new creepy substitute, Mr. Banks, who had a habit of wheezing whenever he was happy. We both found it hilarious. It was nearing the end of class when I spotted her again. Through the window, I saw her on the football field. She was shambling towards me, with her arms stretched out in front of her, pointing at me. Chills went down my spine, and I had to look away. When I got home, I told my parents all about my day, and I even showed them the card. They were both so happy for me. I finally felt normal. Unfortunately, the feeling didn't last. Before bed, while closing my curtains, there she was again, standing in our drive, pointing up at me. I quickly pulled them shut and rushed under my covers. Later that night, I was awoken by the sound of shuffling. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, and that's when I saw her. She was standing in the corner of my room, pointing. I sat up in shock and I realized what she was doing. She wasn't pointing at me. She was pointing under my bed. Then I heard the wheezing. I ran screaming out of my room. Not long after, I found myself on the street, watching as the police dragged Mr. Jonathan Banks out of my house. That's when I stopped being afraid of the dead. The living is far more terrifying. The Promise. There was a young banker named Jonathan Rowland, and he was off to the yearly summer ball. When he arrived, he said hello to his friends and went to the refreshment table. There he met a young girl named Julie. Their hands grazed as each other grabbed for the same cup. He apologized, and they sat down and had some punch and got to know each other. The two were having the most tremendous time. They told each other about themselves, their hobbies, their hopes and dreams. By the end of the dance, there wasn't a single thing they did not know about each other. As a matter of fact, they had such a great time getting to know one another, they never even had a chance to dance. The music ended, and an announcement from the stage declared the dance over. "My goodness, the time flew by," Jonathan said. Julie agreed. Jonathan asked Julie if she would save a dance for him at the next ball, and she of course agreed. Thunder could be heard in the distance, and heavy rain hitting the roof of the town hall. Jonathan had brought an umbrella with him and asked to escort Julie home. She said yes, and they started to walk. She thanked him and said she didn't live far, just over the bridge, in a nice little cottage on the beach. It was raining, but not as heavy as before. They continued to talk and enjoy each other's company. And when they reached the bridge, Julie decided to stop at the railing and look down at the waves crashing upon the rocks below. The wind was beginning to blow quite strongly. Jonathan was starting to feel his umbrella being tugged from his hand. "Julie, it's starting to get pretty bad out here. Maybe we should start heading home now." Julie turned around with a smile on her face, but before she could say anything, the wood railing she was leaning against cracked, and a strong gust of wind knocked her over the side. "Julie, no!" Jonathan cried out in horror as he heard her screams echo as she fell to the water below. Jonathan dove in to try and save her, just missing the rocks. He searched and searched to no avail, barely making it out of the water with his own life. The storm was so violent, Julie's body was never recovered. Jonathan wasn't the same after that. He kept to himself and didn't socialize with anyone, until a year later, a friend of his was able to get him out of the house and come with him to the summer ball. Jonathan did not want to go at first, but with constant prodding, he gave in and decided to go. Plus, he thought it might do him some good to be at the place where he was last happiest. When Jonathan arrived, he sat down at a table with his friend, but was quickly alone when his friend got up to ask a lady to dance. Jonathan sat alone for a few minutes, and then got up and headed to the refreshment table. He reached for a cup and grazed the hand of a young lady. He raised his head to look up at her. "Oh, I'm sorry, madam. I did not mean to." When he saw her face, his jaw dropped. It was Julie. "How? Julie, you're dead," he said, trembling. "I saw your body hit the water. You drowned." "Yes, Jonathan, but I promised I'd save you. A dance." Totally worth it. Andrew pulled Miranda closer to him, but she rolled away, complaining it was too hot. Then she turned to him, her eyes sparkling with mischief and a wicked desire to upset him. "What if this was the last time we had sex? What if I go home and send you a breakup text?" Even though he was pretty sure she was teasing him, Andrew couldn't help feeling an icy pinch in the hollow of his stomach. He opened his mouth intending to match her light, fun tone, but instead he moaned, "Stop it! Why would you say such a thing? I love you so much." He rubbed his face against her sweet skin, gently slapping her ass. She giggled. "What? It's good to plan ahead. I might get killed on the way, in a car crash. How long would you wait before getting back out there? A week, I bet." "Stop that." He slapped a bit harder and she cried, "Ow!" and wiggled. The icy pinch spread in the depth of his body, and he involuntarily shuddered. He had waited so long before true love had come into his life, like a beautiful, warm, golden blessing. He couldn't lose her. But she had started joking about breakups and getting back out there again. Even though he was pretty sure it was just her way of keeping him on his toes, demanding affection and attention, he knew it was time for another sacrifice. Although it was very hard, and he wasn't a natural-born killer, he knew he had to do it. Plus, it was getting easier each time. He already had his eyes on the next targets, a really annoying pair of lovers who lived on the floor above him. They looked dirty and stood outside smoking, and the man had long hair and the woman had green hair, and Andrew hated them. It pleased him that he despised them so much, a nice instance where duty to the goddess of love and personal inclination coincided. He had been quite fond of his previous victims, a nice elderly couple he knew from work, and their look of abject terror when they realized he was about to murder him still haunted him. It was totally worth it, though. Any bloodshed was worth it if it meant Miranda would stay with him. The first pair had been a young teenage couple. Andrew and Miranda had just had a terrible fight, one of their first, and Miranda had screamed she was done with him before throwing herself out of his car and slamming the door behind her. Andrew had driven off to a nearby trail to cool down, and he spotted them, the couple snuggling on a bench together. No one else was around, and he barely thought about. He knew immediately what he had to do. He slit their throats rapidly, one after the other with his pocket knife, first the guy and then the girl, too stunned to resist. By the time he got home, Miranda's conciliatory text, decorated with beautiful scarlet heart emojis, was already warming his phone, and he knew he had done the right thing. How many couples since then? He had lost count, but knew it was increasing. The goddess of love was cruel and demanded more and more bodies to keep Miranda with him. He looked at her beautiful face, glowing with joy. It was her fault in a way, he thought. If she didn't keep him so insecure, if she didn't keep teasing him about breaking up, he wouldn't be doing this. But it was fine. He visualized throttling the neighbor dude with a long lock of his own hair, and while his lover looked on, and knew that that would buy him at least another few months with Miranda. Totally worth it. Love conquers all. It was almost midnight when I reached the road leading to the cemetery. My legs were shaking, but I sped up when I heard a muffled cry for help. A ruffian was dragging her to nearby bushes. "Hey!" I yelled. He turned, his eyes widened with fear. My appearance could be intimidating. Sensing the weakness, she bit him. "Bitch!" He swore, and with a frightened look at me, disappeared in the darkness. Sobbing, she lay on the ground in a white gown, which was torn and disheveled now. "Are you all right?" Slowly she got up to face me. I saw panic in her beautiful puffy eyes, but she didn't move. "Thanks. You shouldn't be here. It's not a safe place." She stared at the road behind me. "I'm waiting for my fiancé. We were going to get married today, secretly, because our families didn't approve." "He's not going to come," I said quietly. "Why? Is he hurt?" "No. He's dead." She gasped and took a step back. "Listen to me." I glanced at the dark graveyard. "Tommy's gone. He was reluctant first, but I forced him to go." "Wait! You're one of them!" She shrieked and sprinted towards the cemetery. I tried running after her, but my legs gave way. Human form weakens the reapers. When I reaped Tommy's soul today, he begged me to warn her about being here tonight. The mobsters who killed Tommy were going to wait for her in the cemetery. Stupid Tommy. Thought he could change her destiny. Love can't conquer the fate. I stood there waiting to reap her soul as her screams pierced the silence. Her love was red. It rained the day my grandfather died. The storm was sudden, sweeping across the cemetery just as the last shovelful hit the ground. I was 7. At first, I held tight to my mother's hand, but with all the shoving, we were separated. I called for her, but the wind snatched my voice. Eventually, wet and shivering, I looked for shelter. The above-ground mausoleum was small, as such things go, but to my young self it seemed immense. At the center was a marble sarcophagus, its top carved into a lifelike image of a young maiden sleeping, a rose clasped in her delicate fingers. The piece bore no name, though there was an inscription. Her love was red. I'm not sure how long I stayed there, but I spent all that time studying the sculpture. I'd never seen anything so intricate. When my mother finally found me, she had to drag me away. I never forgot about her. At night, I'd dream of her marble figure, lying so still. I'd place my head against her chest and hear the faint drum of a heartbeat. Remembering fairy tales, I'd lay my lips against hers, hoping to break her curse. When I woke, I tasted copper on my tongue. On weekends, I told my mother I was visiting my grandfather's grave, but I really visited the mausoleum. The first time, I brought a red rose to lay alongside the carvings. It was faint, but I swore I heard a voice, fragile as a cobweb. That's not it. Over the years, I brought her all manner of red items, lipstick, nail polish, jewelry boxes, bejeweled rings, paintings, and every time I heard the same refrain. That's not it. I tried every shade of red, garnet, crimson, carmine, scarlet. Still, that refrain. That's not it. Eventually, there was only one thing left to try. I drugged the young woman's drink and made sure she was unconscious before I slit her throat. I'm not a monster. Her blood flowed freely, cascading over the marble. With the scent of iron on the air, I heard the voice, more lively than ever. Ah, that's it. Something scraped inside the sarcophagus, like rats inside a hull. Slowly, the carved lid began to inch open. I rushed to help, blood staining my hands. Finally, I would meet this beautiful creature. I reached into the darkness between the frame and the lid, eager to help my love free herself. A hand took mine, cold, dry. When the light fell upon the flesh, it was mottled gray, with long, black fingernails. Trouble of the heart. My heart is yours forever. Valentine's Day 2022. First year of being married. Can't say it's so bad. Pretty enjoyable so far, if you know what I mean. Our first year, we each promised to give each other our hearts, a true symbol of our love for each other. I got her multiple gifts, the usual, flowers, expensive chocolate in a heart-shaped box, a rose gold smartwatch, and my heart. As we wake up, we both look into each other's eyes, happy we are made for each other, truly. We go about our usual morning routine, shower, brush our teeth, get dressed, eat, and start our plans. Since it's Valentine's Day, I decided to drop gifts for her throughout the day. First, the chocolates. I sneak up behind her as she's chopping veggies for our Valentine's Day lunch. She turns around and I kiss her on her forehead. Happy Valentine's Day, my love, I tell her. Babe, you know all I wanted was your heart, your love. You didn't have to do this for me. She hugs and kisses me. I shrug and tell her that more is to come. She finishes up lunch and we eat. After lunch, I bring out another box, the smartwatch in rose gold. Babe, why? I just want your heart, your love. You didn't have to give me this, she says. Well, I'm showing you my love by getting you gifts, I respond. I give her a kiss on the cheek. The doorbell rings and she goes to answer it. The delivery man hands her the flowers I ordered for her. She reads the note and starts to tear up. I give a gentle smile and she comes over and kisses me. Night falls, we eat supper, and receive a phone call. The doctor tells us to come in tomorrow. Excited, we both give each other a kiss goodnight before we fall asleep in each other's arms. The next day, we head to the hospital and my wife gets ready for surgery. I stay with her and tell her how much I love her and how I would do anything for her. She falls asleep. When she wakes up, she asks where I am. The nurse doesn't say anything but hands her the same note that came with the flowers. My heart is yours forever. The creature is me. I hummed to myself as I made dinner, danced around the kitchen, to some 30s jazz song about falling in love, and managed not to spill pesto sauce everywhere while I rolled it up into little pasta bundles to place between layers of tender meat. If there was anything I wanted to do today, it was to cater to my husband. He had given me a lot of support over the years, taught me patience, and helped me see my worth. It was more than I think I could ever say I did for him. I placed the plates on the silver platter his sister had given us last Christmas, and began the perilous journey up the stairs to give him his dinner in bed. Once I pushed the door open, I paused, horrified at the sight of my husband flailing about on our bed. The sheets around him were crimson, stained as if in theme with Valentine's, by the blood that flowed freely from his wrists. I almost tossed the platter down and ran to him. "Now, dear," I whispered, as I applied force to his forearm, keeping it in place to string it back up properly to the bedpost. "You can't keep hurting yourself like this." He recoiled in response to my touch, his eyes begging me to let him go. "Baby, please," he whimpered. "Please, I love you. Please don't do this to me, to us." He was choking back his sobs. I bit back a smile. What a sweet sight. Today felt like we had taken a huge step in our relationship. I stroked his hair and sat him up carefully. Okay, love. I'll do just that. Everything's gonna be just fine. But I need you to eat for me. All right?" I went about picking the platter back up from where I'd left it. I spooned a little pasta bundle sandwich between two thin slices of beef, then gently placed it in his mouth. "Good, huh?" He pressed his eyes closed and nodded through the mouthfuls, so I gave him a second helping and then a third. And finally I took a bite of my hard work for myself. I frowned, disappointed. "I thought you said she tasted better than I did," I mumbled to myself as I pulled up the nude photographs his co-worker had sent him earlier in the week, along with the incriminating messages. "To be honest, dear." He froze, shock and disgust painting themselves across his features. I leaned in to lick the little stream of pesto that trailed from the corner of his lips. I think I might have burned her this time. What a shame. His face was contorted in pain, and tears began to make their way down the slopes of his cheeks. "Oh, no. Don't worry, baby." I wiped them away with my thumb. "There's plenty left for me to try again tomorrow." Valentine's Day for Leah and Thomas. I'm trembling with excitement, waiting for Thomas to come home from his business trip. It's taking me days to prepare, but I know he'll love the surprise. There's wine chilling on the counter. I changed the sheets on the bed. They were so dirty. I bought a special red silk teddy, a cheap internet sale, one that barely covers my skin. My skin. It doesn't look as good as I want it to. Lately, it's gotten saggier and a little dull, but I know Thomas will make me feel sexy. He's kissed it and touched it enough times. One of my favorite things is watching him kiss the little butterfly tattoo on my hip. Adrenaline surges through me when I hear a key in the lock. "Leah, honey." Oh, wow. His words trail off when I assume he sees the wine and the candles, his tone shifting his footsteps coming closer to the bedroom. God, I've missed you. I'm gonna... The door opens, and we finally make eye contact. I flutter my eyelashes, waiting for my man to join me. He doesn't, though. He lets out an ear-splitting scream, and he doesn't stop. The noise makes me frightened. I thought he would like this. Does he think I'm ugly? Doesn't he like the way I got ready for Valentine's Day? He's still screaming. Something about where is Leah and what did I do to her? I try to explain. I try to tell him that I am Leah. I even have the butterfly tattoo, see? But do you know what that asshole does? He calls me a crazy bitch, asks where his wife is, and says he's calling the police. I get off the bed and grab my hunting knife. I'm pissed. He never fucking appreciates anything I do. Frickin' men. They're all the same. If he must know, the rotting sack of meat this skin comes from is downstairs. Something sexy for Valentine's Day. In 16 years of marriage, Jane's husband had never, ever given her sexy underwear for Valentine's Day. No negligees, no silky, filmy nighties, nothing. Chocolates, yes, and flowers occasionally, but never anything sexy. Just the usual dutiful, sweetly dull old standbys. Jane didn't know why such a thing bothered her this year, of all years, but it did. It had been annoying her more and more in the last week before Valentine's Day, and so now, here she was, on the 13th, just ready to stride out the door and go to the mall herself. Everybody wants something sexy for Valentine's Day, she told herself firmly. It's perfectly all right to go out and get something for me. Women get their own underwear all the time. Nobody's going to tell me I can't. And so out she went, heart thudding in her chest, glancing nervously around, as though expecting someone to stop her. But no one did stop her, of course, and she finally reached the mall after about an hour's hike. Victoria's Secret was close to the mall entrance, and Jane crept in, avoiding the rotting corpses of those unlucky enough to have been caught by the terrible gas bombs of 2 weeks ago. The acrid, chemical smell of the bombs had faded, and Jane had to pinch her nose at the black, rotten odor of decomposing flesh. She found what she wanted quickly. A slinky, lacy black slip with silky black panties to match. She'd lost so much weight in 2 weeks, they would surely fit. She stuffed them in a bag and tiptoed carefully out. One more stop at the CVS on the way home, and she would be done with her Valentine shopping. Luckily, there were still plenty of OTC sleep medications on the shelves, and she had a bottle of whiskey at home. She grabbed a box of chocolates, too, just because it was Valentine's Day, after all. Once home, she slipped into her lovely, sexy things, grabbed the sleeping pills and whiskey, and walked resolutely down the hall to the bedroom. She hadn't opened the door since David went in there 2 weeks ago, after coming in from their yard, where he had been when the bombs came seething through the sky without warning. He'd shambled in, skin blistering and peeling right before her eyes, and slammed the door. She hadn't even wanted to see him after that. But now it was time. She had whiskey and sleeping pills and chocolate. She even finally had something sexy for Valentine's Day. She opened the door and went in to be with her husband. On Valentine's Day, what we know. It is the 14th of February, 2022, Valentine's Day, a day for couples to celebrate their love for one another in ways extravagant or subtle, a chance for those with a crush to reveal their affections through a delightful bouquet or a delicious collection of chocolates. Yet for reasons which are still debated, by the end of this day last year, a terrible wave of violence had swept through the town of Milkywood, sending dozens to the morgue and scores more to the local hospital's trauma unit. It was like he hated me, says Gabrielle, a student at Picklestone High, in an interview conducted at her hospital bed in the aftermath of the attack. She escaped with moderate injuries. Her boyfriend had grabbed her hair and bashed her head repeatedly against the desk at school. She adds that everything had seemed normal that day, and they were both looking forward to having a romantic dinner after school. The assault had come out of the blue, lightning, on a bright and sunny day. Victim statements obtained by police revealed that the same story had played out many times, all across town. The victims came from all walks of life: students, checkout operators, bankers, truck drivers. Each was set upon in vicious, almost rabid attacks. Some onslaughts involved weapons, but in many cases, the perpetrator used his or her bare hands to pummel their victim. Authorities were initially left baffled by the absolute lack of a common thread, of anything tying all these victims together. Chief Inspector Michael Aldrich described the only pattern they could discern. What we could gather was that all of the victims were assaulted by people that they were romantically attached to: husbands, girlfriends, partners. Like these were of crimes of passion. So many at once, he added, postulating that it was as if the love these people had for their significant others had suddenly turned into hate. Still, there were no real explanations, no plausible reason for so many people to suddenly turn on the ones they loved, maiming or killing them. Then weeks later, a breakthrough. A junior detective working through statements and crime scene evidence spotted a connection: roses. Nearly every survivor mentioned that just before the assault, their attacker had been handling a rose or bouquet of roses closely, that they were sniffing them. Could the crimson flower have hidden some kind of toxin, some pathogen perhaps? Samples from the police department's evidence lockers were sent to a testing facility. The results? Inconclusive. Though they uncovered traces of some sort of unknown biological compound, the samples were too degraded, rendering any identification impossible. Further investigation revealed that the roses all came from Rogers Roses, a downtown florist. A police raid uncovered an abandoned shopfront. Authorities stress that although investigations are ongoing, the public have no reason to be apprehensive about roses this Valentine's Day. Latest news: fatal stabbing reported at Union Station. Live updates here. Valentine's Day girlfriend. Ashley rolled the silver drop pendant between her fingers. It had a good weight to it, much better than last year's gift. Darren's smile had been particularly sweet as he pulled the gift from his back pocket. He'd taken her on an afternoon walk by the canal after school. Turns out, not all footballers make the swim team. She outstretched her hand to admire the matching ring on her finger, a heart encompassed by 2 hands and a crown. That was from Jimmy, the smartest boy in her class. She taught him a lesson on their date at the park. If a car is traveling down a road at 40 miles per hour, and you're pushed into a road by a 90-pound girl, you don't have time to do any math. She took another chocolate truffle from her bag and popped it in her mouth. She rolled the luxury chocolate over her tongue and savored the taste. Charles was a connoisseur of the sweet and delectable, though you could probably guess just by looking at him. Paramedics rushed past her into the Wendy's restaurant. She looked through the window as they dragged him onto a stretcher. "Hey, Ashley," Jake called from over the road. He pulled his collar up and lit up a cigarette. "Don't you have a date? Want to be my Valentine?" "I don't know. Did you get me a present?"